Right, hello. Hopefully YouTube notifies people I'm on. So we'll find out in a moment. So I've got the Korean, was it K3 on? We were talking about that on the stream the other day. That's mostly an Avon M50 or C50 ripoff. C50's drinking tube, sort of C50 face piece. Right, Rajiv? But it has the eyepieces of like a Forshida F2 looking mask on it. And it's got the blanking plug bit is more like a US sort of M40 style one. So it's a very strange mask. Like I said, the main sort of thing I don't really like with this mask is that the plastic is very brittle. So some of that's already broken off, and the lens is scratched super easily. You know, like just made from a very very scratch prone sort of acrylic or whatever they are. So yeah, but yeah, makes an airtight seal on my face. So, you know, it would work as a gas mask. I just don't really trust it because of how brittle some of the plastic is on it. You think, is that just going to shatter at some point, like the eyepieces and that bit when you're wearing the mask and then let gas in? So, yeah, there we go. Hopefully you'll get a load of people on, but you never know. If we get a decent amount of people on, I'll stream for about an hour. If not, I'll stream for less time. So, yeah, say hello, anybody, when you get on. Don't forget to like the stream. I'll take this off for now. I'll put it back on in a minute, but I'll take this off for now just so I can talk a bit more easily and breathe more easily and whatever else. Yeah, like I said, the brittle bit on this is like the plasticky bits, especially the plasticky bit that covered that bit, because that came off, like I said, really easily. And I assume this is like a blanking plug on that side that you can take out, but you probably need oh yeah, that's actually lower quality than I thought. That's not actually a proper voice diaphragm on that, it's just like a checkered pattern. So yeah, this I assume is a blanking plug, but like I said, I can't get it off by hand, so it's done quite tight. The drinking tube system is pretty much identical to this Avon C50. Not my only source, Chris. Like I said, when I used to do another job, that was my main source. I do a few other side things as well, but like again, at the moment, it would be my probably highest earning thing, if that makes sense. Yeah, an alright forging fort, but yeah, like I said, I won't go into it. But like what I've always done with like earnings and stuff is try to have several various income sources rather than just relying on one thing, because like, you know, obviously you can lose your job or whatever else. So yeah, that's why I've always sort of done that I'd rather make a bit of money from quite a few different sources than totally rely on one, even if that one source made me a bit more per month than like 5 different things added together. But yeah, so like I said, in January or February, whenever is a good time to start doing it, I'm going to start selling off some of my stuff that I don't really use anymore. If you mean PlayStation, PlayStation, I've had the big classic Xbox I preferred to the PS2, like the Xbox Huge. The 360 wasn't as good as the PS3, and although the 360 obviously came out quite a bit earlier, my 360 had a red ring of death and everything as well, so that doesn't give it good points. And then after that, I've never had any of the newer Xboxes. I've had a PS5, I had a PS3 and a PS5, never had a PS4, never had any other Xboxes. And most of the Microsoft games now, well, PC is my answer anyway, because a lot of the games aren't even like exclusives anymore, you know, where like they actually both Microsoft and Sony are releasing a lot more of their games on PC anyway. The inflatable hazmat suit, I don't know if I've still got that one, or do you mean the if you mean the Czech one I did the video on the other day, I've still got that one. But if you mean the one which was like the one where it had the like air pressure system and like, you know, and actually inflated and then it's higher pressure in the suit than outside, I don't have that anymore, because that was one that, like, you know, was a lot of money. So it was one that somebody let me borrow to do videos on. and then have back. And I personally wouldn't really want a suit like that because they're very, very cumbersome. As much as they're like cool in a movie style suit where, you know, where you're like kind of moving like that and you've got like this sort of spaceman astronaut looking visor on them, they are pretty impractical. You know, they're designed for somebody to suit you up and then wander around, you know, on an airline or whatever with them. What when you're what you're trying to communicate with your teammates, you mean forging, and you're getting a yeah. Out of interest, which has the better voice diaphragm? That mask, which was like is like a brand new modern Korean mask, or a GP5M? So yeah, I wonder which one has the better voice diaphragm on or not. So yeah, like I said, I kind of get the weird feeling it might be this mask, but who knows. New Year's Day, not much at all. My dad's birthday, funnily enough, is on New Year's Eve. So New Year's Eve is my dad's birthday for whatever we do for that. New Year's Day, I don't generally do much at all. I'm not planning on like drinking heavily or anything on New Year's Eve and then needing a day to recover from a hangover. I just don't really plan on doing much. You know, I'll get some YouTube stuff filmed, might do a stream, whatever, but I haven't got any plans for it, in all honesty. I wonder if my glasses sit on this. Oh shit, that was my mouse. They knocked on the floor. And they can't look down very well to pick it up because, there we go, it didn't break. I can sort of wear those on here. But yeah, my plan, I don't really have any plans for, like, say, New Year's Day. I always wonder with these shun masks, if your chin's meant to sit in it like that, or if your chin's meant to go right further in, like that. Because if that's still airtight, I suppose that's you get a better field of view like that. But I'm never really sure with the shun masks where about the chin bit is meant to go on your chin. Yeah. One of my favourite masks historically, even though it's not got a voice diaphragm or anything, is the British, and again, you can't wear them, really, because the asbestos filters, is the British Mark IV and the Mark V GSR. Well, I am breathing with a gas mask, look, because obviously I'd be suffocating if I wasn't breathing. If you mean, can I breathe in the sense of, would it protect me from poison gases and everything? Yes. Yeah, annoyingly, the British Mark IV and Mark V GSRs, you can't obviously breathe through those, their original filters, even though they look really cool because of that. They all had asbestos filters because Britain basically used nothing but asbestos in World War II. And again, like the PMK and GP7, I think look really cool, but I think they're shit masks, or at least I don't get on with them. So there's those that, you know, I don't particularly like. But yeah, like I said, the C50 is my current go-to mask in terms of it looks good and it works. Yeah, the GP5M isn't too uncomfortable. Again, I'm not sure if I technically should have this in the slightly bigger size, because this one does feel a bit tight on me. But it's not stupidly uncomfortable, especially if I move this bit back a bit to about there, so it doesn't carve into my Adam's apple with the like bottom bit of the hood. You know, for a cheap latexy mask, you know, I could wear this to escape from whatever. But I think the voice diaphragm, as much as this isn't much of an improvement, the Shum 2012, Psycho Mantis, what I can read your memory card, can I? You all right, Joshua? Yeah, I had an all right Christmas, as I said. Just saw my granddad and had a quiet day, really. So yeah, this one, the voice diaphragm, I'm pretty sure is better on this one. Yeah, the only problem with the M40 for me is the fact it has to have that second skin thing. So they made it out of like a silicone to be comfortable, didn't they? And like not give people allergy kind of problems. But the problem with the US M40 is obviously that it had to have the second skin if it was being exposed to certain chemicals. So unlike a lot of masks, you needed a mask for your mask. So yeah, M40, I think the M40 looks cool and everything. The straps aren't amazing on it. That's another thing. The M40 I think could have been a bit better. But I do like the M40 overall, yeah. It's got a voice diaphragm, good field of view. Like I said, I think the S10 is better than the M40 for when both of them came out. Because they are very similar, but the S10 came first and, you know, didn't need a mask for it on top. But the M40 I like. And then you've got, like, the M45 whatever, haven't you? Which is quite rare and is an interesting looking mask. And the MCU2P, which if it hadn't, you know, had all the oranging problems and everything, would have been a pretty damn good gas mask. Like I said, the MSA Millennium, I think, fixed a load of the issues with it, but sadly you never really see those for sale. Also, for some reason with this one, you get a much, I guess because of how they've constructed it, you get a much droopier kind of chin section that does that. But yeah, so, like I said, the Shum 2012 is alright, but it's not really any step up above any of those previous Soviet masks we were looking at. Even though it's got technically slightly bigger triangular lenses, the field of view isn't really any better than when you're actually inside the mask. You might be able to see a tiny bit more. It's not noticeable. You know, it's not where with some masks you really do notice a good difference. And I suppose there's one cool mask here I can show you, although I sadly can't breathe through the filter for it. And technically I should dust the inside of this as well before wearing it, but very, very rare mask. Only rare because the British government destroyed most of them, not because the mask was rare in the first place. Hang on a second. Some of you already recognise this. I won't do that little bottom strap up, I'll just do the top bit. But yeah, this is quite a so if I do that I can breathe. This is quite a rare mask in Britain because the government destroyed nearly all of them. Favourite mask, I've already answered that, Avon C50. Just because it's my most modern mask that actually is comfortable on me. You know, I can put an old pair of glasses with the arms removed inside and actually be able to see properly. Don't have a German World War I gas mask. But yeah, that's a British C7, which was going to be the British civilian mask during the Cold War. And then the government said, everybody's going to die in a nuclear attack anyway. Fuck them, and let's not bother making gas masks for them. Because you don't need them for efficiency, Chris. So you can still get some industrial companies that do coffee can style filters, or like the big filters. But it's basically because filters have got more efficient, you can get a filter to be far more compact and still last for quite a few hours when exposed to gas of various types. So the reason filters used to be quite big was the filter medium inside wasn't very efficient. So like the particle filter had to be bigger and the charcoal section had to be bigger for it to work. Or, you know, last a decent amount of time when it was being exposed to stuff. But as filters have become more efficient, you don't need as big a filter. And obviously a lighter weight filter is generally better for everyone. So yeah, I did do a video on one not too long ago, but you can get these, I don't know if I've got it anywhere handy, that's what I was just having a look. You can get these Chinese coffee can filters that are just Chinese sort of GP5-y thing, isn't it? The MF1 or whatever it is. You can get these Chinese coffee can filters, but they're not as big as the Soviet ones when I measured them up. They're a bit narrower, a bit shorter, like an EO16. But yeah, they're designed for people that are like, you know, working day in, day out with certain chemicals that they just last like, you know, 3 times as long as a standard on mask filter. And good evening to everybody. Now, you might need such masks in the future in the UK if Kia keeps going down his undemocratic thing he likes doing and starts firing tear gas at people. And suppose, you know, with pollution and diseases, you might need a mask. But I'm not particularly worried in the sense of I'm worried that, you know, a foreign government might launch a massive WMD or like, you know, nuclear war type thing. I don't really think I'd need a mask for that. But like I said before in videos, in general, you're far more likely to need a mask because of some sort of chemical spill and, you know, industrial accident you either are from like an actual somebody using a chemical weapon in anger. Yeah, I quite like the M65, that one. It's goofy as hell, but yes, I do quite like it. I've got two somewhere. I've got one where I removed the filter and one with the filter still in it. But the cheek filters in that are weird because they come with a cheek filter in it, and it's actually a metal cheek filter inside the cheek. So it's kind of one that was never designed to have replacement filters. I've got a PMG, not handy, and I've also got a couple of PMG knockoffs, the Hungarian, are they M70s or 70Ms? I've got a couple of the Hungarian knockoffs of the PMG as well. But none of them I've got handy in this room to show you easily, I don't think. Oh yeah, this was the mask I was on about earlier, the the GP7, that, like I said, is a mask that I physically like the look of this mask. Although, like I said, I am very tempted with this at some point to cut this seal. No, it's because it's quite a common mask. It's not like I'd be destroying anything of historical value. But like I said, this is one of those masks where I'm not a massive fan of the actual mask itself, but I actually think it visually looks really cool. But the thing I definitely need to do is cut, if you can see where that seal is in the way of my eyes. Oh, British Mark II, they're very old, aren't they? Is that, I assume that's like later than the World War I sort of box respirators, but it's sort of, yeah, so what I want to kind of do, if I can get the straps out the way properly, is just go down. Yeah, I need to get the harness completely behind the head sections. Again, GP7s, these are not rare masks at all. You can get them very cheaply and easily online. What I want to do with these is get my scissors and cut just a little bit along each of these bits of the side seal. So I'm going to do that now. So for some people, this will be like gore because I'm going to be destroying a gas mask. But as you can see, it cuts very easily with scissors, this mask. It's not a particularly strong, good rubber. But what I just want to do is cut that little bit off there. And then maybe I will actually like this mask a bit more. And do the same on the other side. There we go. Yeah, no, I've not evenly done it. This is just a work in progress at the moment. And then what that does there is it means it's still got the most of the peripheral seal there. But yeah, now still pressurizes. It's not going into my bloody eyes, look. So that's how I improved this mask, by just cutting a little bit of rubber off. But yeah, like I said, that's just one of the things I found really weird with the seal on this mask, is just how, you know, like how much in the seal goes. But yeah, now it doesn't actually get in the way of my eyes, so see, it pressurizes. But you can see how much dead space there is in the mask when I do that. Look how much it caves in because of how much, yeah, for whatever reason the Soviets designed this dead space they put in the mask. And I don't mean dead space the game, I just mean not optimizing the layout of the mask very well. Ah, yeah, the dodgy orange canister full of asbestos and whatever. Yeah, just keep it and store it in an airtight bag or whatever. And that's the problem with getting married, forging for both probably men and women. If you've got a hobby, the woman probably doesn't like. I'm gonna be sexist and say women. I don't know if gay blokes getting married ever have this issue. Oh, that you're taking up spending too much money on your hobby, not me. And that woman probably will buy loads of shoes and whatever else and waste money on them. But yeah, so yeah, I'm one of those people that happily would never want to get married and have kids, in personally. But yeah, so there you go. An easy way of improving the PMG, even though it will upset a load of Puritans, is just snipping away some of the rubber on the side. And now this mask actually fits me and doesn't irritate my eyes. But yeah, like I said, this is always a weird mask to me, the GP7 and PMK one. That they're kind of good in some ways, but they're not. Like, if I was to get this mask and make it actually good, like, I'd have obviously had that made to a much smaller amount than it is there, with all of this, like I said, the rubber that I had to just snip a bit away at. It would have an oral nasal cup in it, so it would actually not fog up as quickly. And I'd have had a mesh head harness on it, not these really annoying straps that are awful to, you know, adjust and capture hair really easily. Oh yeah, so speaking about the quality of the rubber work on this look, see where they've not even cut the rubber away properly when they've done the mask in the factory. Ah, too much effort, comrade, cutting rubber to shape. Not my problem. But yeah, a lot of these masks, obviously being the end of the Soviet Union's lineage, nobody actually cared at that point. Does this one have a date on it? C90, so 1990. So yeah, basically right at the end of the Soviet Union, because 89 to 91 is basically, you know, the very end of the Soviet Union. Mid-80s stuff can still be all right sometimes. The classic GP5, I have not got handy. I had the GP5M on earlier, but the classic GP5 I don't have right handy, I'm afraid, at the moment. No. I've got a load of GP5 variants, and like I said, I have the GP5M here. But the classic GP5, you wouldn't be able to hear me if I put it on and talked anyway, because the regular GP5 without the voice diaphragm on is just, it's like a pyro noise, basically. So, yeah, just getting that, like, swimmer's cap bit adjusted properly. But yeah, the GP5M is much better if you're doing a video, because it is essentially the same mask, just with a voice diaphragm added. And again, I'm going to need to cut my hair soon, look, because that's getting in the way now. Right. Does that GP5 for that price come with, now I'm a snork, does the GP5 for the, or a unicorn, whatever, does the GP5 for $35 or $36 come with the bag and the filter and that sort of shit? If so, it's not an awful price. It's, you know, way more than they used to cost. Most things cost more than they used to cost now, so. My mum, I've done this on the video, but my mum, when I was quite young, bought me an Finnish M61 from a surplus store as just like a random present, and I liked wearing it. And I liked a lot of games like Half-Life and that when I was young, where, you know, the bad guys all have gas masks in and stuff like that. So it was probably just stuff like that. I was given one as a present when I was quite young, and I played a lot of video games where the enemies all wore gas masks or like similar sort of, you know, industrial looking stuff. So I just thought they were cool. And then, as I've said quite a few times, when I first started getting into surplus, gas masks at that point were really cheap. Like, they were almost like junk surplus that, you know, most shops, if they got them in, sold them cheap and just, you know, had them as, you know, like cheap surplus, if that makes sense. You know, like the ones where if they sold helmets, the helmets would be quite expensive. So it was a case of, I'm just going to turn that light off now because it's giving off a lot of heat. So it was, yeah, just simply a case that with the gas masks, you know, you could go into sometimes a surplus store. For £30, you could buy a mask with its satchel, with some accessories and everything else. And, you know, that would be quite a good price. Whereas if you looked at helmets and other surplus things like that, they would cost way more. So it was just simply a case that if I wanted to get something surplus and talk about it on YouTube, the masks were cheap, relatively cheap. You could always get some own custom outserts with USMC. And, you know, put your own custom outsert on one. Yeah, but forging thought, they used to be a lot more common. Obviously, what happened a lot with COVID and things like that is a lot of the surplus of them got used up, you know, and they used to be a lot, you know, cheaper and more common. But, yeah, now they're a lot of the time surplus, but you can still get some for good prices, like I've gone on about before. That, you know, if you don't mind buying an industrial style mask, even though a lot of them are still good and work, some of those can sometimes be still fairly cheap. Like, if I go on eBay right now I'm not going to buy one because I've already got probably 2 of these. Can I buy a, what do you call it? Is it something Helsinki it's called, I think. It's got nothing to do with Finland. It's just the, yeah, so Port West Helsinki. Right, most of the places at the moment are selling them for 70 to 100 quid, which is a bit expensive. You can get their half-face version for $18.99. But when I bought both of the, because my mum ended up having one of them as well. Like I gave my mum one, and then I've got the other, the Port West Helsinki. I've because it's a 40mm panoramic face mask. And yeah, the Port West mask, the Helsinki that I've got, like I said, both of those I got for about £30. And for a panoramic full face mask, that's not bad. But yeah, all of the ones on eBay at the moment are like £60 plus. And for that money, I'd rather go for a proper surplus one. But I reckon, again, if you shopped around, you could still find full face masks for, you know, that sort of price. Yeah, I've live streamed for years, Founder. Yeah, that's the good thing. If you're buying them offline, you can check the sizes. That's the thing I do really miss about brick and mortar surplus stores dying out, is you could check the size of clothing or whatever. And one thing I really like doing with brick and mortar stores was actually checking how faded the camo was. Because to say I'm going to buy something with camo on, I want it to be as least faded and, like, you know, sun bleached as possible. So quite often you could look through all of them in your size, figure out what your size was, look through all of them and find a one that looked the least like worn, you know, like most modern print of that sort of jacket. You know, and then pick up a cool thing. I don't think the Helsinki's in here, but let me just have a look. So I think that's the box for it there, potentially. Yeah, this is the mask I'm on about, but I don't have it in its box. So, but yeah, I've said about this one before. It's actually one of those masks that a few different companies sell under different, you know, names. Oh, Canadian C4, let's put that on, that's cool. And yeah, somebody asked me about removing the visor on these. Actually, I don't know these. Yeah, they're a lot more complicated. But, never mind. Yeah, sadly, it's just one of those industries, how much rent is in most countries for a building. And because you can do all the stuff like a surplus store online, it just makes sense to have like your own little, you know, self-storage unit that you use to hold all your stock and then just sell them on sites like eBay or host your own website. Because that's the problem with all these surplus stores, is that, you know, having a physical shop people can walk in and look around means you have to have staff, you know, in the shop. You're going to always lose a bit of stuff through theft, you know, and it costs a lot more. And you have all these different insurance liabilities that you don't have if you're just doing the thing. But yeah, this is a cool mask, the Canadian C4. This is one I... Oh, no, that's why it's not pressurizing. That's the one I wanted to check. But yeah, this is a mask I always like, the Canadian C4 with its big alien bug eyes. And the cool thing with these is, unlike the S6, these don't give me horrible motion sickness. Now, don't get me wrong, you do get a weird visual thing there, but it's not the same kind of angle and distortion. So it's more just like you've got a bit of vision where you can kind of see, but, you know, can't make out any details. So, yeah, I'll do a short on this soon, because, again, the Canadian C4 is an interesting mask, but I haven't done many videos on it. Yeah, the field of view is very good on this. It's because it's not panoramic, you do get a bit of dead zone there, and it is quite a big bit there. But it's got the kind of S10 style thing where it, you know, the lens kind of is angled in a way. So, because if you look from that way, it's like a quite weird looking thing, but like I said, but because that is quite a thick bit of rubber there, you do get quite a noticeable dead zone, you know, between your eyes where you constantly see a blur. Well, Rex, I already brought it out, but I've got 2 C7s, and C7 masks are pretty rare because The C7 was one that the British government mass-produced as a civilian gas mask during the Cold War, only to say everybody's going to die anyway in a nuclear war, so let's get rid of them. So they basically took them all back and recycled them. Either reused the masks for their own use until they, broke and fell apart, or they just destroyed them or whatever. So it's ones where now and again people find them in their attic and, sell them. Yeah, the field of view is good on a Canadian C4. And apparently, the C4 had issues originally where I think the glue on it or something was really bad. But it's one of those masks that, once you had the initial bad batch, they've all been absolutely fine. But yeah, they came in green as well, the C4. This one's Canadian. Yeah, this is the Canadian C4 made by Airbus. So it's the one the Canadian Army maybe you can see the field of view there. Like I said, if I get the strap out the way. But yeah, you do get a good field of view on these. But like I said, that edge bit, although it's quite distorted, doesn't do the thing the S6 does, because the lens on this is actually relatively flat there. So you've got, like the S10, kind of an angled bit there, then a flattish bit, although it's got a bit of a curve to it. And then because the other curve is right on the edge of the lens, you don't have the S6's problem where that curve is right in the kind of, like second third of your vision. So as soon as you turn your head, your thing distorts. So this kind of reminds me of a Fly, this mask with its big eyepieces. But yeah, Airbus make a really cool looking mask, I think now. Is it called the LBM or something like that? Where, again, it'd be a mask that I'd probably pick up if I ever saw one at a good price, but I doubt I ever will. And again, I had to trade to get that Canadian C4. Yeah, Airbus Low Burden Mask, LBM. So if you look that up, that looks pretty cool, the Airbus LBM. It's sort of a bit like a C50 M50 looking mask, the LBM, but like with the kind of top bit of the C4 like head harness. So yeah, the LBM's pretty cool looking. I'll just see if I can get a good picture up to put on the... Again, I think you can buy them online. I think they just cost silly money. But so yeah, that's the LBM. So that's the one in Canadian service. I think is replacing the C4. And again, it's just more of a kind of, we want a C50, but with the a bit like how the C4 looked. But yeah, it looks like it'd be pretty damn good. So like I said, the Canadian C4 is a very nice mask. But yeah, can I buy an LBM and how much would it cost? Like I said, I'm not going to buy one because I bet it would be way too much money for me, especially not having a full-on secure job at the moment. The Airbus site doesn't sell them by the look of it. Oh, hang on, they do have a shop. That's just an information thing. Oh, Airbus's half face masks start at $80, so that's not particularly... and they only sell the little civilian masks. Okay. Oh, I don't want to do a fucking inquiry form to ask about buying one. But yeah, I'd assume if I could find an Airbus LBM for sale, it's going to be pretty damn expensive. Oh, and here's one that looks interesting on the picture, and then it's a fucking AI picture, and then when you go to the actual listing pictures, it's a Chinese MF-14. That's interesting. Anyway, I've gone off topic there. Yeah, the annoying stuff with Canadian surplus, though, is a lot of Canadian surplus is destroyed rather than being sold in surplus stores, which I think is why that C4 was so hard to get. So basically, there's an American guy I know called Tyler that watches the videos and that. And I sent him an S10 because he couldn't find an S10 for reasonable money in the US. And then he bought me a Canadian C4 for like, what wasn't too expensive and sent it to me. So he got an S10 out of it, and I got a C4, and it was quite a nice trade. But yeah, sadly with Canada, yeah, for some reason they destroy a lot of their surplus rather than selling it. You never know if the Canadian government at some point changes to a completely different political party. They might go, "We need some money, eh? Sell the surplus, eh?" But with the Canadians at the moment, sadly, yeah, a lot of the surplus is just kind of incinerated or whatever, or thrown in a grinder or something. Where you could actually just fucking sell those uniforms. What they could do, right, the Canadians, if they wanted to, if they wanted to sell the uniforms but then were worried about people impersonating Canadian soldiers, and again, that's a stupid thing because you can buy knockoff Canadian uniforms anyway from like airsoft retailers and that, is why not just dye them dye them bright red or bright orange and then sell them? Because I still wouldn't mind some like bright orange Canadian like CAD-PAT, but I think it depends on the sword, but I've got, for example, right here, hang on, caught on loads of shit. I have right here their 1796 Sabre, which I really like. But again, it depends how much you're spending on it, and check out the reviews on individual swords, because I've heard some of their swords have had a lot of issues, where others are fine. Because the weird thing is Cold Steel don't really make their own stuff, if that makes sense. What Cold Steel do, as far as I'm aware, is they have like a couple of different like companies they outsource production to. So some of the Cold Steel stuff is done at like, one factory, some is done at another. And I've heard that's one of the things that makes a big difference, is which factory is making it. Some of the swords over various bits of time have had like revisions. So, for example, with this 1796, apparently this is like a slightly more modern version that's actually closer to the original sword. And when they first did the 1796s, people said like the weight and the balance and everything felt completely wrong. So with Cold Steel, they're more expensive than some other brands of swords, and they're not really any better. To be brutally honest, if that makes sense. That doesn't mean they're bad for the money, because you can certainly pay way more than Cold Steel do for swords. But yeah, in terms of Cold Steel, I'd say read a lot of the reviews on the individual sword. And somebody says, "Why are you mouth look funny?" or something. Goodbye. Can you, if you're trying to insult me, can you actually word it properly next time so I know what the exact insult's meant to be? Yeah, I don't know much about their knives, Forging Fort. I've got a couple of their machetes, but the problem was in the UK is, although Cold Steel stuff, most of their knives have never been illegal in the UK, other than a couple of weird models where, like the government just gets really fucking funny about certain knife designs. Most Cold Steel stuff has always been absolutely fine to buy in the UK, but you're kind of paying a premium for it at the time, by the point they've imported it and then they've like stuck a load of tax on it and whatever else. It's never been really a very good option. But yeah, Windlass Steelcraft is one that some of their products are pretty good. They're made in India. And some Windlass stuff is pretty good. Other Windlass stuff has been, a bit overrated. Or not built to a really great standard. But a lot of the Windlass swords I've had, I've really, really liked. Like Windlass Steelcrafts, I found like some of the maces they've done. The bar mace has actually been absolutely fine. But I found when I had a flanged, like medieval style mace they did, that rusted stupidly easily. Like it wasn't heat treated properly or something. I don't know, like to the extent where you could completely oil it after use and it would still be rusting like, nobody's business. But Windlass is like, if there's a particular sword you like and Windlass do a version of it, it's generally pretty well made for not costing a lot of money. Did Lynn Thompson sell it? I didn't know that. So yeah, when the big like muscly fat dude who did the trophy hunting sold it, it's just not the same, right? That kind of makes sense then. Now, Yeah, so Devon, like I was saying, with windlass, same with cold steel, sometimes they can do particular swords that they're just shit at doing. So it is one of those things where look at the reviews, because although sometimes you get companies that are generally pretty good, sometimes they can just be crap with an individual product. But what I've heard, and again, I don't have a windlass one to compare side by side, so I can't prove it. But what I've heard from a lot of people more recently is that the cold steel 1796s are actually windlass 1796s, as in they're their manufacturer for them. So I've heard some people say if you buy a windlass one and buy a cold steel one of the more recent design, you put them side by side, they're pretty much identical weight, identical length, the craftsmanship looks identical. And the windlass one, sorry, the cold steel one does say it's made in India. So it could be it's the exact same factory, like forge type place doing them. I don't know. But windlasses, cutlasses are really nice. But yeah, in the UK, I couldn't find any windlass ones, say, for sale of their 1796s, but I could find the cold steel ones. So it might be that, again, it's a bit like a marketing thing. But the windlass sword I really like, again, I have it next to my bed for decorative purposes, not to chop up a burglar. But windlass do a really, really nice cutlass. Now, which one is it? The M1860 naval cutlass. So if you buy it from a site that offers a sharpening service, because I think by default, that although it comes with a point that would still go straight through somebody, I think, yeah, the edge is blunt unless you order it from a place that does a sharpening service on it, because a lot of windlass ones are done blunt on purpose so they can be used for reenacting by default, and then you can sharpen the blade up to be a proper cutter. Yeah, the windlass M1860 naval cutlass is a really, really nice sort of brawling sword. Very good length, got a good good edge to it where I had mine sharpened up. I'm trying to remember what site I bought mine from, because I don't think with YouTubers, what funny as they get about guns, I don't think the Night Shop do sharpening, but I don't think I bought it from the Night Shop. I can't remember. But yeah, sharpening adds £10 to £12 to the price, and I'd recommend that if you're buying a sword. But the 1860 cutlass is really, really fucking nice. As in, I'll do a short on it again soon. But for me, like really long swords, because I'm like 5'8", 5'9", whatever. Because I'm below 6 foot, I wouldn't want a really long sword because your center of balance isn't right for them. And cutlasses are really practical, as in you're not going to knock them on door frames. So if you had to use it in a theoretical, let's say, we won't say Minecraft, what shall we say? What's a game where people use swords? In Assassin's Creed scenario, if in Assassin's Creed, you had to use one of these cutlasses, let's say, you're not going to catch it on a door frame as well. It's got the really good shell kind of handguard that you could punch with the handguard and break somebody's jaw with it. And it's going to stop an incoming blade from cutting your fingers off. So yeah, the cutlasses, I think, ideally, for a lot of people, are a much better length blade. And you can do that and recover the blade more quickly. Because, for example, I've got a windlass sword here, look. This is their 1860 cavalry saber. Now, the cavalry saber, I don't like the weight and balance on this, but this isn't a windlass problem. This is just the sword in general was known to be a very, very heavy cavalry saber. For, wasn't designed to be used off a horse. It was only ever designed to be, used on a horse for running people down. But the fit and finish of this is still very good. It's just that, like I said, this is a bit too long and heavy for my liking. Whereas the 1860 cutlass is the exact opposite. It's very, very nice to handle and swing about and whatever. It's a bit like where I've got that Napoleonic one, wherever that is, the saber briquette. It's a similar one to that, where it's got a nice good length to it and whatever else. But yeah, I can't see at the moment where that one is, even though I did have it in this room relatively recently. But again, sometimes when friends come over, they like playing with my stuff and it never gets put back where it was prior. And as you probably know, I don't organise the stuff very well. But yeah, the saber briquette, the French one, is quite nice as well, like that. Yeah, exactly. They're for you're confined on a ship. So yeah, you're confined on a ship, so you don't have a lot of room to swing it. So you need to get a good amount of energy up from a shorter swing. And yeah, also cutlasses were used for cutting ropes and just general kind of utility stuff. So again, a cutlass is a bit more like a machete with a guard on it and everything. But I've got a falchion as well, and it's down there, so I can't get it easily at the moment. And although I had my falchion done for me specifically, you know, I paid a load of money for actually having a swordsmith make it, you know, to the exact length I wanted, with the exact guard I wanted and all that. I think I actually prefer the windlass cutlass, even though, yeah, in every other way, the falchion is a better sword. That windlass cutlass is just, you know, almost like the perfect dimensions for me. And like I said, very good balance on the blade. It can hack very well. Well, cutlasses are still very stabby. Because the only other thing with sabers as well is that obviously a saber can be quite hard to thrust with, depending on how curved they are. Cutlasses are generally like that pretty good amount of curve. They've got a bit of curve to them, but it's still, the point goes where you think it's going to go on a good cutlass. Whereas with sabers, you have to train to know where to put the point. I'll have a look how much they are now. But like I said, when I bought that windlass, it was probably a lot cheaper. But so the night shop do it. Again, I can't remember if I bought it from the night shop. Do they have it in stock? That's the question. It says usually dispatched in 4 to 6 weeks. They don't actually have the price on there. Oh yeah, sorry, it's including tax £152, and then you have to pay 10 to 12 quid for the sharpening service. So about 170. Again, I don't think I bought it from the night shop when I got one, but I cannot tell you for the life of me where I bought it from. Was it the sword shop? Southern Swords, that sounds more like it. Southern Swords. So yeah, I'm just looking on Southern Swords now. So the funny thing is, as long as they don't sell guns on any of these things, I can talk fine about these sites on YouTube. As soon as they sell, like, even airsofty type shit, you're not allowed to talk about them on YouTube things. I don't know if Southern Sword still does it. Because, again, some of these, you know, some of these sites don't always keep the same things in stock, if that makes sense, you know. They do a version of it, I think, that's intended more as a wall hanger. And that's 85 quid. But I don't know if that would break. You know, the tang might not be very good on it. But yeah, Southern Sword sounds about right. I'm just having a look on the windlass stuff on the swordshop.co.uk. Because they've got quite a lot on there. And they do a saber briquette, but their one's 215 quid. My one was a lot cheaper than that, but my one's not sharp either. They also do the 1796 heavy cavalry saber, which is the one Sean Bean uses in Sharp, which is pretty cool. Lots of, like, you know, medieval style swords. I don't really like double-edged swords personally, because they require a lot more skill to learn to use properly. Yeah, I'm just having a look on here if they have that particular cutlass. Got some rapiers, which are very good for thrusting, but rapiers are actually surprisingly heavy, especially not the fencing type ones, you know, military rapiers, because they have a very, like, decent sized blade to them, you know, where you might think they're going to be not as heavy as they are. No, sadly, I don't reckon they have this cutlass anymore on their site either. I'm just going to search cutlass just in case. Oh, wait, maybe they do. Is this it? Hang on. Which manufacturer is this? Because you can get the sharpening service done on this website. And it says it can be used for test cutting. But doesn't say which... oh, it is windlass. There we go. It just didn't come up on the windlass ones. So, again, I think this is a spin-off of the Night Shop anyway, this one. The K98 is way better than the Nagant. Nagant is bolt stuck, bolt stuck, bolt stuck. I'd rather have a Lee Enfield to either, or an M1 Garand. But there you go. That is murder weapons. What do you mean murder weapons? Anything could be a murder weapon. You could beat somebody to death with your phone. If I had to pick out of the less famous ones, I'd actually probably say the Kakano, though. The Kakano little, like, carbine. I've got a Diak one somewhere with the bayonet that folds into it, because it's a lot lighter and shorter, and Kakanos were still good, as much as they did have a bit of a bad reputation, but that was more because of the unready state of the Italian army, not the fact that Kakano was bad. Murder weapons. Murder. Dunno. What if you sodomize somebody with a cucumber? You could go on a reign of terror of a cucumber. But yeah, you're obviously here to be a problem. But yeah, what if somebody bent you over and pulled out a cucumber? I'd be pretty worried. Like that would be a bit of battery with that. I was thinking, you made me think of Under Siege then, Forging Fort. I'm just a cook. But, well, Devon, apparently Kakano rounds weren't bad. Again, remember, Lee Harvey Oswald used the Kakano to JFK. So evidently it does work. Yeah, the Kakano's round isn't as good as some of the other World War II rifle rounds, but it was still good enough. This is the thing. You know, it's one of those things where, again, most rifles of World War II, the standard infantry rifles, had good enough cartridges. You know, some of them were better than others, but, you know, if you were shot at 200 yards or whatever with any of the World War II rifles, I think a Kakano would still blow a pretty horrible hole through you. What if you sharpen the cucumber as well? Because, or you froze it and then it becomes extra hard. Because, you know, if you put something in the freezer and it gets really solid, you could, for example, like in the, is it Tales of the Unexpected, where the woman, spoilers, she beats her husband to death because he cheated on her with a frozen leg of lamb. I think it's a leg of lamb anyway. It might be a pork joint, whatever, out the freezer. She bludgeons him to death with it, and then she cooks it to hide the evidence. So, you know, they can't match the murder thing because she's cooked the murder thing. It was a frozen leg of lamb. Yeah, I'd EDC my pork sword. I wouldn't want it gone. Yeah, so it is Tales of the Unexpected, yeah. But yeah, I always remember that because I thought, I wonder if you could actually do that. A bit like, what was I going to say? A bit like the one where if you got a really sharp bit of ice, if somebody was stabbed with a bit of ice, would the police be able to ID it properly? But again, I don't want to start going too much into theoretical ways of murdering people on the stream. All right, yep, they're all right cold, those, Rajiv. Yeah, the Chinese was very nice, and I haven't had dinner yet, and I'm hungry. And the problem is now I've had a takeaway last night. I think, oh, Christ, I want another takeaway. And then I'm going, no, but it will cost too much money, and I have to be frugal with my money. So, but yeah, I haven't decided what I'm having for dinner yet. I might have a look in the freezer, because if there's some onion rings, I might do some onion rings in the air fryer. Oh, yeah, pizza sounds good. Again, there's so many foods where I keep going, oh, yeah, if I had more disposable income, then, you know, MSG. I fucking love MSG. I've actually got a fucking packet of MSG somewhere, so I can add MSG to foods that don't have MSG in it. And, all right, dear leader, I don't have it on me, but I was going to get my North Korean money out then, but that's in my different coat pocket that's hung up in a different room. That's cool. Yeah, like I said, again, it's just me. It's more price. Like, how much is a Domino's now, for example? I bet they're expensive, and Domino's aren't as good as they used to be. But if I was to order a Domino's tonight, how much would that cost me? Because I know, yes, in theory, it says like, oh, I can get a large pizza for £14, but as soon as you add decent toppings, it's more. The one I like is where if they still do this deal, it again is still expensive, but it's to order 2 large ones with 2 sides and everything else. Do they still do that one? Let's have a look. Is it the large big deal that's $35.99? Because 2 pizzas large, 2 sides, 1 dessert. Yeah, that's the one. And then it might go a bit more. Are they still doing a festive pizza? Because last year, I haven't had a Domino's in like months, but last year they did one that was like a cranberry pizza. But I can't. Oh, the festive one. It's back. Is it that one? Let's have a look. The festive one. Toppings. Yeah, cranberry drizzle. They do. I'm kind of tempted just because that's a limited time thing, and you know I had Christmas money to maybe get a fucking Domino's. So I just I haven't had one in ages, and you know pizza lasts me like 3 days in the fridge. Where you know I'll have a load tonight, I'll have a load tomorrow. Yeah, some of Aldi's pizzas are really good. Saying that, especially because some of their frozen ones you can keep in the freezer for ages. Anyway, I'll be off in a minute. Don't forget to like the stream. I'll stay on for a few more minutes, but don't forget to like the stream. But yeah, I'm gonna be naughty, I think, and have a pizza. Let me just have a look at my bank balance and check it ain't too bad. Because like I said, need to be careful, like. But yeah, I haven't been buying any surplus at all. So like I said, that way my money's still good. But annoyingly, because my mum doesn't like using her credit card online, I have to do the thing where quite often I have to buy stuff on my card. I get given the money, then I have to go to a fucking post office to pay that money back in because she's scared of using her card online. So but yeah, I've been pretty good boy in not spending money recently because of you know, not having a fucking proper job again and that. So yeah, they'll come for you. Forging for it's a bit like deep pan Chicago pizza is meant to be like heresy to Italians, isn't it? Oh no, Kevin. I've screenshotted it. Tell you what, if you want to put it in again, put it in again. Not that I should be telling you to do that. You know, break it up as how you broke it up. But I can actually look at it because I'm physically at the PC and not in a game. So I can have a look now because we were on about swords just now. Yeah, my dad basically doesn't buy anything online. My dad sells stuff. This is the weird thing. My dad actually, as much as my dad is a Luddite, my dad knows how to use eBay. Yeah, right. Numrich. Let's have a look. Right, it's verifying I'm human. Hopefully they don't ban you from visiting if you're in the UK. I am 18 or older. That's all I had to click. So what were you just saying to have a look at some of the stuff they've got on there? Look, they've got some M2 carbine wood. So what is this just if you're in the US for buying accessories for your funds and replacement parts? I'll bookmark them. Like I said, they're not really, there's not much point for me using them. You said about gas masks, didn't you? That was the reason you were on about them. I remember now. You searched for gas mask. No results. Okay, do I have to do accessories? Oh, wait, no, it's coming up now. So they've got the M17 chemical hoods. They've got M17 outserts. Yeah, they've actually got repairable parts, which is pretty good. Like you said, M61 filters, 45 canisters in a box for $200. That box looks like quite a nice box as well. That looks like you could use the box for something, because that's like a bit like a big old ammo can, isn't it? It's like a wood reinforced box of steel. From Finland. Oh, those 40mm adapters they've got, they are the proper type ones, those ones. Although $15 for one of those is a lot of money. Oh, they've got some manuals for masks as well. But yeah, I like the fact that you can replace nearly every single bit of an M17 on there. And because they sell the M17 nose cups on their own, you could, in theory, buy the M17 nose cups and franken fit them to other masks, like a Soviet mask, to make the mask a better quality mask. So, you know, there is that. Yeah, it's just the problem is, Kevin, with tax and shit like that, by the time you add all that on, it normally isn't a very good price anymore. Because I've got that issue with some other places in the US. Like, it's like when I want to get US CDV, you know, like radiation gear. It's like a lot of US sellers sell them for actually quite good cheap prices for working like CDV 715, CDV 700s and all that sort of stuff. But by the time postage, shipping, taxes and all that shit gets added on, it's normally always over $100, even if the person at the other end is selling it for like $20, $30. There's sadly not many near me, World War II USMC, and not many that one of the abandoned airfields near me, though, I think now and again they're letting people onto for guided tours, so I'm kind of interested in that. An old US airbase that's abandoned near me. But I did do a video going to an abandoned ROC post and another one at an ROC post that was restored as a museum. But yeah, like I said, I wanted to get an ROC post, but sadly all the boomers bought them up going like, I'm not going to do an American accent because they're not American boomers over here, but Vladimir Putin might be nuking us. I must buy one of these ROC posts so I can hide away in it, even though I don't live nearby. So, you know, it's fat fucking load of good, isn't it, having an ROC nuclear bunker if you don't live near it? Because I wanted to turn one into a fucking, like, man cave, you know, with solar panels outside and, you know, just have it as a comfy little hidey hole bunker and live like the hermit I always wanted to be. But sadly, the boomers outpriced me from the market. So I used to be able to buy them in good condition for 20 grand. Now it's like 50 grand for a shit condition one. Yeah, Yugo M1s are interesting, Kevin. They're the same mask as a US M9 or a Finnish M61, you know, that style of mask. Basically the US M9 or M9A1. But the Yugo ones are interesting because they're made from a weird rubber that will spontaneously melt on you. So they're kind of interesting because they're fine until they're not. So Yugo M1s, also known as the Yugo M59, are very, very strange because they are literally a mask that one day could be fine. You could look at it the next day and find you've got molten rubber sludge in your satchel because of it's just because the chemical bonds, I think, that they're made from, you know, are very much at the point that they're falling apart. But yeah, they're kind of funny masks because they're fine until they're not, which makes them funny. That, you know, you could, I suppose somebody, if they were sad enough, could put one in like an airtight glass cabinet with like a webcam constantly recording it, and then it could prove that, you know, just out of nowhere one day it's just going to go in on itself. Yeah, I've got an M40. I might do another quickie video on it fairly soon because, like I said, the M40 is one that you know, I know a lot of people like, and it's an interesting mask. Yeah, I don't think it would melt like at really high temperatures, Kevin. I don't actually know though. This is interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it suddenly like superheats and falls apart. Go recon, my ass is heavy. Yeah, I don't know if the M1 when they melt actually suddenly heat up, or it's just a case of like they just literally fall apart. Let's see if I can find you see if I can find a picture of a melted M1 mask. Because I know they're like known to melt, and my ones thankfully have never melted. But I know so many other people have had them and they've melted. So yeah, I'm just looking to see if I can find a picture of. Right, so this kind of picture this is just on the straps, but this is like what happens to the rubber. I'd go to America, even though Trump didn't bother me at all in his first term. At the moment with Trump, because they want to look through all your social media posts, and I've taken the piss out of him a bit, they probably wouldn't let me into America. But I do want to go to America and do a load of shooting and stuff, because I do actually like America as a country. It's just your current president is a bit batshit. And like I said, in his first term, I actually quite like Trump. But this current Trump that, where he keeps trying to sell Ukraine down the river, and, oh, nobody does these deals like me, and all these tariffs, and fuck my European allies, don't like them. And who's this Epstein guy? I don't know, even though I'm on all the pictures of him. Yeah, he's not exactly my favorite president, let's put it that way. Not that I don't know who else would be good. It's a bit like in the UK, we only ever seem to get worse leaders than the previous one. It never gets better with our elected leaders. Like Keir Starmer's worse than Trump. But yeah, I'd like to go to America, but like I said, it's the current thing with Trump is gonna have to look through all your social media, see if you made fun of me, because I got a very little ego. Yeah, this is the funny thing, Buddy Slayer. Again, UK is suffering if you're into a lot of military history now because of how restricted everything is. But because I'm also chronically ill, and the UK, we do have socialised healthcare, that does work out for me here. So, when my body starts falling apart, I don't have to directly pay to be put back together. Yeah, no memes of JD Vance with the stupid, like, funny inflated face and the weird hair. Or like the one where he's eating a lollipop. There was a good JD Vance one I saw with that face where he was looking under a toilet stall door where somebody had photoshopped his face onto like some weird creep in a public toilet, perving on people. Yeah, Christmas was good, thank you. I'm off in a minute, by the way, people. You're coming on now. Afraid you're a bit late. It depends what you eat in America, doesn't it, dear leader? Because again, I've heard you can still get good, healthy foods in America. It's just that a lot of the slop in Walmart is like all that horrible chemically, like, shitty foods. But from what I've heard, you can still buy proper, like, not hormone meat in America and all that. If you go to a proper butcher's and that, it's just you have to read the packaging a lot more, clear, like, sort of thing. Yeah, Guy Line Vance. 6-pounder and a mountain howitzer. That sounds fun. JD Sport. Yeah, that's a shop over here if people don't know. No relation to JD Vance. That's funny. Do you guys agree with socialism? It depends what you mean by socialism, doesn't it? Because where we have lots of lefty politicians in the UK, I think a lot of them are traitorous to the country. That's probably getting me put on a watch list. But by that, Ninja, I mean I like the right. So here's the thing, right? Somebody's going to clip this, and it's going to sound awful. I actually think, ideally, I would be a National Socialist, but that doesn't mean a fucking Nazi, because the idea that you have people that actually care about their country, pride in their country, and then you have, like support systems so people don't become homeless really easily, because if you have a super capitalist system, everybody, because they're so much out for themselves, it becomes a really shitty, low trust society because of that reason. But when I say National Socialist, I don't mean the fucking Nazis because they were cunts. So, that's the funny thing is, if I had to say what I think would be a good economic system, socialism mixed with nationalism, but not like how they did it, which is, the thing. There's just water in here, by the way. 2-litre water bottle, so I remember to stay hydrated. Yeah, chat, clip that. But yeah, when I say that, I don't mean like the Austrian painter, because he, for a savior of the white race, he certainly killed a lot of fucking Germans, didn't he? Made their country in such a good condition after he did his little bit of adventurism. But yeah, like I said, I don't think socialism inherently is a bad thing, but it depends completely how it's done. Well, again, I do the thing like every guy does, and I'm sure every guy does this, that when you shave, you do shave both sides off just to have a look in the mirror before shaving the last bit off. But no, I am not going to have a toothbrush moustache on the stream. And I'm not planning on shaving my moustache off anytime soon anyway. But, you know, like I said, because you can not hate other people and still think that, you know, like your country is for your people, and that, oh, I'm probably definitely on Kia's watch list now, aren't I? Even though the other day he was welcoming back that jihadi that was calling for the death of Jews and calling for the death of white people and saying white people were monkeys and how he wanted to commit terrorism. And Kia's like, oh, what a lovely person to let in because I'm true to your Kia. But if you're a white person and you said something like that about another group of people, you'd be straight to prison. So, yeah, my fucking government in this country is a fucking joke. Yeah, and that's the thing, is because, again, I'm certainly not one of those people that, like, it's like socialism's never been tried, because lots of these countries have tried socialism and it's gone really, really badly. Because I'm not saying, like, go full-on socialism. I'm just thinking you do need a bit of a support network and a safety net, because otherwise, once you're not in, you know, the best position in society, people just drop out, because why would you contribute if it's so skewed against you? What, where there's people on the street trying to knife you? Yeah, exactly, Devon. That's what I'm sort of saying, that I think some socialist policies are good and some are shit. But I think you do need a degree of socialism in a country for people to actually want to contribute, because lots of people aren't born into lots of, you know, wealth. So you need a system where even if they're doing pretty menial work, they feel like they're a part of the system and actually want to work. If you have a system where you're always going to be shit on unless you're, you know, born into wealth or very, very skilled, you know, you're going to have, you know, because again, if you have a full ANCAP kind of anarcho-capitalist kind of society, that's going to go wrong for like the rapture reason in Bioshock. That you know, the downtrodden people are going to get very angry and then feel they've got nothing to lose with having a revolution. No, fascism and National Socialism are a bit different. And again, I'm not an expert on this, but fascism, because again, fascism is Mussolini's thing, and Mussolini was obviously bros with Hitler, but fascism was very much, wasn't it? Again, Mussolini was a socialist who got pissed off with socialism and came up with a different kind of socialism. Fascism had a lot of national identity with it, and I think there was like industry, but it was like the state said what the industry could and couldn't do. National Socialism, again, was like very different, because Hitler came along and was like, this is very good, but I would like to be made very racially pure. You know, so again, the Nazis were fucking weird, because every other fascist government at the time kind of was all right. Like Franco in Spain survived into the 70s because everybody in the West realized as soon as the Cold War was on, they actually needed, you know, the fascists on point. Yeah, exactly. Education, healthcare, just general safety, people not being in poverty, because, yeah, the wealth gap gets bigger and bigger in the UK every year. Oh, yeah, that was the thing. Like I was saying, with Franco's Spain, Franco actually did a good job with Spain, which I'm sure was going to make all my Spanish subscribers unsubscribe. But Franco's period in Spain, you know, he brought shitloads of money into the country, industrialized a lot of it. He started the fucking tourism industry up because he realized that was a good way of taking money from, you know, English people and putting it into Spain through, you know, let's just build a load of like coastal towns for the fat English people to come to. But yeah, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, was it a good idea to publicly say bad things about him? No, you might disappear and never be seen again, or go to prison and be tortured. But, you know, and I don't like the idea that you can't freely speak, because I can't freely speak in this country. Our freedom of speech is being eroded. But at least in Spain, if you kept your mouth shut in that period, Mosley could have easily become prime minister if he stayed in one of the two main parties. Because again, Mosley is interesting. Mosley was originally a Conservative Party member, but got really angry about what the government at the time was doing to the Irish, the oppression of the Irish in Ireland. So he went to the Labour Party because of that, but then got pissed off with the Labour Party because he didn't think they were doing enough to help the poor people. And that's why he became a fascist. And apparently he quite liked Mussolini but thought Hitler was a cunt. And, you know, you might say he said that afterwards because he was trying to, you know, excuse himself from all the stuff Hitler did. But yeah, Mosley's quite interesting because, again, he is one of those politicians that could have very easily become prime minister if he'd have stayed in his party because he was very, very charismatic and everything. But again, like I said, a lot of the fascists weren't that stupid. It's just that, you know, this guy called Adolf ruined it for everyone. And that doesn't mean that I think fascism is necessarily a good or perfect system. I don't know if I'd want to live under a fascist one, but I'm just sort of saying that, you know, how much of a bad rap it gets from history. Really, it was the Nazis and wasn't it the Croatian or Stasi or something that were the other really, really fucking nasty ones. That, you know, and again, Imperial Japan was fucking horrible as well. They were, you know, bastards. But a lot of the European fascist countries were pretty chill, in all honesty. You know, it was just you're replacing the king and the monarch with, you know, a different kind of leader. But yeah, the Stasi were the ones, weren't they, that even the Nazis were like, chill out, dudes, which apparently some of the Nazis had said to the Japs as well, like during the rape of Nanking, like, even this is going a bit too far for us, and we're fucking evil, you know. Yeah, how different would history have been if they accepted Hitler into art school? I just think that would be an interesting, you know, what about in history? Suppose you'd have the plot of Command and Conquer Red Alert, just, not Hitler being killed, just Hitler being accepted into art school and then him fucking off. Where the Soviets would have invaded Western Europe and it would have been like the Cold War going hot, but much earlier on. But anyway, I'll be off now because I've been on over an hour. Don't forget to like the stream. Yeah, because with clipped moustaches, and again, you didn't have to have it just like that. Some of the British officers had like quite small moustaches like that as well, but more angled. It was because the gas mask had sealed your face, and because you couldn't have a big moustache and a beard because it would break the seal of the mask. But yeah, you could have a little small tash because it wouldn't get in the way of your mask. I wasn't planning on shaving. I always shave my beard off because I can never grow a proper beard. I grow like weird patches of beard, you know, where I'll get a bit of sideburns and a bit of beard there and it won't grow out properly. So yeah, I never grow a beard. I always shave my beard off because it looks kind of like, you know, and I always get a neck beard as well first, which I hate. But yeah, I kind of trim it, but I don't shave it off because you have to trim it, otherwise the hairs get too long and they go in your mouth when you eat, which is awful. And because I don't wax it, I can't be asked to constantly have really long hairs and do that. So, you know, just trim it kind of like with what you get, a comb, like a ruler, and just trim it like that. But certain gas masks won't work with that, Kevin, sadly. With the handlebar, some oral nasal cups will be broken with that because some oral nasal cups are kind of shaped like that. So yeah, this is almost a bit too wide. I normally shave it to about where my lips end on each side. Yeah, one of my friends used to be able to grow beard stupidly easily. I mean, probably still can, but you know, like one of my friends used to be one of those people could not shave for a couple of days and have a beard he could pull chicks with really easily, and he never knew why. It was just one of those things he could do. But you know, it's just one of those things. It's a bit genetic, isn't it? But like my dad is somebody that gets stubble everywhere within like a day of not shaving, but I don't know how well he could grow a beard because he never has tried to do one. He always just, you know, shaves every day. But red beard doesn't look too bad. I think ginger looks better on a beard for a man than it does like top head hair. You know, great big bushy beard. Well, some soldiers in World War II would have had beards, but they weren't meant to, you know, because again, with most gas masks, it broke the seal. But again, there's a lot of units in World War II, like especially on the Eastern Front, where how brutal and, you know, non being checked for their uniform, discipline, and everything, where they wouldn't have given a shit. You know, yeah, great big bushy beard. He wasn't like you. Dogmuck kids, crusty jugglers. But yeah, I will be off because otherwise I'm too long. And like I said, I want to get some fucking pizza now. I'm hungry for pizza. So don't forget to like the stream on your way out. And I will be on tomorrow and hopefully do a stream tomorrow. And I'll have other videos up as usual. Again, I want to stream at this sort of time in the evening or a bit later because that way more people can catch them and enjoy them. Because like I said, it works for the Americans and works for people in Britain if I stream later in the evening UK time, because it's UK time evening, early afternoon American time seems to work for everyone. The main thing I don't like with beards is how easy it is to get fucking food caught in it. Yeah. Are you West Coast, buddy? Sorry, Budder. Are you West Coast, like Pacific time, if it's 10:38? Because that's 8 hours behind me. Yeah, so that's the thing. That's why I wouldn't really want to do it any earlier than this time of day, than like 5 or 6 p.m. UK time if I can avoid it. Because obviously West Coast Pacific time is 8 hours behind the current UK time. East Coast, I think, is like 5 hours, isn't it? And then Central time's like 6 or 7. But yeah, that's the thing. I can't ever stream at a time where all of my subscribers will be happy. But because a lot of my subscribers are in the US, by country, the biggest percent of my subscribers are US, then it's UK, and then Canada is like 4th or 5th. So ideally, I'd want to do a stream that's good for the Americans and Canadians. But again, you can't always, well, 6 or 7, it depends, doesn't it? How far across the states you are. I think the States has more than one time zone. That's my point. What 5 or 6 instead of 6 or 7, do you mean time-wise? Yeah, whatever, in the evening, it's not that important, is it? If you get a notification, if YouTube sends it out and you're around, at least it will be not before. You won't have to set an alarm clock for my stream. That's what I'm saying. If you're in the US, if I do it 6 p.m. or later. But the problem is some days I just have a day where I'm just really fucking tired in the evening and don't want to stream. Yellow pop guns, what do you mean by those? If you mean the blank firers, sadly I've had to get rid of those. But like I said, at least for those blank firers, I found somebody who is basically maybe not going to hand them in, but knows they can't legally own them after a certain date. So what I've done is I've given them away to somebody, and that person has said, I know as of whatever day I can't legally own them, so therefore, I might give them into the police. I might own them illegally. And I said to that person, yeah, that's all right. If you get some fun out of them, whatever, I don't fucking agree with any of these. And again, sadly with YouTube policies, can't tell you where I bought any blank guns from, but those aren't for sale in the UK anyway anymore because our dickish government, yeah, they're real, but they're blank guns. So basically how they worked is you can fire blank 9mm cartridges or whatever out of them, but not live rounds because they're going to blow up in your hand and frag you. Yeah, but you can fire 9mm pack out of real 9mm guns. That's my point. So they're blank firers. Yes, knife attacks and enrichment is very common in the UK now, sadly. Hence why I've done a load of videos on stab vests and things like that. The UK is very much getting worse and worse, not getting better year on year. You can own some, but again, I don't want to give the government ideas on what they could ban next. But yeah, it's just, again, remember, the UK government the UK is basically a narco-tyranny. Actual criminals don't get punished, but law-abiding people do, because the government would rather rule through fear of the masses than actually deal with crime. So, in the UK, if we did have a proper police state, at least then you might be safe. But we've got the kind of police state where if you say the wrong thing online, you have the wrong opinion, you go to prison. If you run around noncing kids and stabbing people, you don't go to prison or get a very short sentence. Which comment got me 10 years in prison, gaming with Poseidon? 10 years in prison? I didn't even insult Keir this time. Because Keir Starmer's a wanker. Have you seen all the videos when the people are doing the darts? and the media gets pissed off because everybody's chanting Keir Starmer's a wanker, and they have to cut the audio. A couple of people I went to school with have been stabbed, as in one person is now dead I went to school with. I know people who know people, as in not like, you know, their cousin's auntie or this knows somebody, as in people that they were directly friends with or knew that have been stabbed to death. So as in, like, you know, somebody I'm on good terms with knows somebody directly who's been stabbed to death. I know a couple of people like that. Other people know people that got beaten up. Where I used to work, every few months you'd get a murder in the city area where I worked, you know, and if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, that could have been you. When there was that mass stabbing on the train not too recently, that was on a train one of my friends took, but like 2 days before. So if he'd have been traveling on that, you know, train 2 days later at that time, he could have been one of the people stabbed and ended up in critical condition in hospital. So yeah, it isn't just like, oh, it's something in the news that doesn't affect people. There are real people that this happens to. And similarly to that, somebody was hit and run and killed, so essentially murdered, manslaughtered, murdered, whichever way it was, that lived opposite my aunt and uncle. You know, like the person, their neighbour from across the road in my area was run over and killed by somebody, you know, I don't know if he was drink driving or whatever, but ran him over and just did a runner, you know, and that person died at the scene, was in his 20s, was one of the neighbours of my aunt and uncle. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to be off now, so let's end the stream on a lighter note. Hopefully I'll catch you tomorrow for a stream. Keir Starmer's a wanker, don't forget that. Yeah, I will be on tomorrow, hopefully for a stream, unless I'm arrested by old Bill for my bad opinions. And yeah, don't forget to like the stream on the way out, because hopefully it helps YouTube share my videos. And I will get a video filmed on the M40 and the Canadian C4 as well for some of my upcoming videos, because I know a lot of people are interested in those. Right, see you all. Have a good day, good evening, whatever. Good morning if you're in Yankee land. Goodbye.